being recorded, so we will be able to share a recording after today if you're interested, and we will also share the materials. I'd like to ask if you put your microphones on mute, please, during the presentation so we don't have any background noise. And once we finish the presentation, we'll do Q&A using the chat function. Just to share my screen. Can I check? Can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. The team from Bishopstrow today, I think you're probably familiar with us all, but in addition to myself, Stuart Nicholson, Principal, Chris Lewis, Director of Studies, and Tessa Howard-Wise, Director of External Relations, will be giving the presentation today. They've all been actively involved in Bishopstrow for many years, and obviously actively involved in the delivery of our online programs since lockdown. The context here, just in case you're not aware, is that like pretty much all schools around the world, and particularly in the UK, we launched our online school, Bishopstrow Online, at the end of March, on March the 30th, which was the start of Bishopstrow's third term. We operate 4 terms a year. This was our 3rd term, and continued through to early June with 75 students enrolled on the programme, and generally good feedback from students, agents, and staff. We rolled into term 4 about a week after the end of term 3 on the 22nd of June with a further 70 students enrolled, and some of these were returning students who'd been with us during term 3, but a good number were new students that joined specifically for some or all of term 4. Term 4 is now ongoing through to the end of August, and we were keen to reconnect with agents to raise further awareness of Bishopstrow Online, but also as we look ahead to the new academic year and students enrolling or re-enrolling in boarding schools in the UK from September, we're keen to ensure that agents and parents are aware of the opportunity that students can benefit from enrolling on Bishopstrow Online. And we have a number of weeks left of term 4. As I said, it runs through to the end of August. And so there is still scope to prepare international students during the remainder of this term ahead of their entry in September. And of course, they'll be studying online from home before travelling to the UK, in most cases, we believe, from September. We are planning to continue with our online provision during term 1, which commences later than most schools in September, commences on the 21st of September. And therefore the online programs will continue to be available if students are unable, or in some cases unwilling, to travel to the UK. And the provision will be slightly different because we'll have students in the classroom as well as students studying remotely. What we'd like to cover today is an overview of Bishopstrow Online, an overview and some details on the academic, pastoral, wellbeing and fitness components of the programme. We'll take you through an example timetable, admissions, and then wrap up with Q&A. So I'll now hand over to Stuart, who will kick things off.
Thank you, Mark. To start off by giving people a sort of summary overview of what the online provision is about. In the same way as when we're on campus, we're looking to provide international students preparation for going to the best British boarding schools. And in the same way that education is a very engaging and interactive one when it's on campus, we're setting out to do exactly the same when we're online. And whether they're our youngest students, our juniors that might be as young as 7, or our oldest students who might be as old as 17, it is the same ambition as when we're on campus. And we're looking to give them the introduction to academic tuition, to a cultural understanding and awareness, and helping to develop the social and boarding understanding that's important for moving into a British boarding school. And we haven't forgotten other aspects of that provision. In fact, in some ways, we've been even more aware of the importance of their well-being and their fitness, because we know that that underpins them being healthy and fit and learning well.
Good, how are you?
When we started the process back in March, when I was talking to my colleagues about the possibility of teaching online, first of all, I said to them, I've got some experience in this because I'd actually set up an online teaching in Cambridge about 10 years before that, and I was confident that we could do it and do it well. And my colleagues said that what wouldn't work with international second language learners would be to just send them work and ask them to do it and send it back for marking. And I know that some schools have had an approach that's rather like that. My colleagues said that it's really important that you can talk directly to the students, that they can talk directly to you. We've got to be able to interact in the same way as we do on campus. So right from the beginning, it was a very interactive approach, and that if you drop into a Bishopstrow online classroom, as I do frequently, I've been in 3 or 4 already this morning, you will see students responding to their teachers, you'll see them answering questions, you'll see them asking questions, and contributing to class in just the way that you'd expect them to be contributing if they were there physically in person. Could we have the next slide, please, Mark?
Yep.
So it is all real time. As I was saying, my colleague said, this has got to be interactive, it's got to be with us, it's got to be real and live. And the main change that we made is that to accommodate those youngsters, and some of them as young as 8 years old, who are many time zones away in Japan, my colleague said, well, we can't start teaching at 9 o'clock in the UK because that means that these little children in Japan are still going to be up and in class at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that's just crazy. So we start teaching at 6 o'clock every morning. My colleagues are up at 5, we start at 6. And that means that these our smallest Bishopstrow students, who are just, as I say, 8 years old, aren't having to stay up really late. And we chose to use Microsoft Teams as the platform for our teaching. The advantage of Teams for us, I think, were a number of factors. One of them is that because it's a Microsoft product, everything within Microsoft is coherent within it. But a great advantage is that it is a secure platform, and in terms of being very aware of the welfare of our students online and the potential risks that there are there, one of the advantages of Teams is that it's very self-contained, and that if you're operating within Teams, you're doing it in a secure and safe environment. And the process for joining a lesson is very straightforward. Each individual student has their own individual calendar, which is their timetable. So day by day, lesson by lesson, they can look at their calendar and they see what's coming next, and they simply click on the appropriate lesson when the time comes. And then they go in, and there are their classmates, there is their teacher, and that's just like a normal class, take the register and off we go. They can learn in a variety of ways. There is the familiar now exchange by voice. We find it very, very important that students actually also use video feeds. When you're learning in a second language, teaching in a second language, we find it really helpful to be able to see our students. It's even important to be able to see their lips and see how they're forming sounds, given that we're teaching language to them. So that video aspect of the Teams call is very important. They find that the text very helpful. There are shared whiteboards, there are pre-recorded videos. And all of these provide a variety of teaching approaches which you'd want to see in a standard classroom. And students share their work, they respond to the teacher's input, they do their own presentations. The things that you'd hope to be seeing in a successful, enjoyable, well-run physical classroom are happening in the same way in a enjoyable, well-run virtual classroom as well. And one of the opportunities which Teams gives us is that we can actually, in the virtual space, look over their virtual shoulders, as it were. Actually, we can see the work that they're doing as they're doing it on a person-by-person basis. And one perhaps unforeseen advantage of being online is that students also have the opportunity for that private individual text chat, so that if there's something they've got a problem with, they can raise that quietly and unobtrusively with their teacher and don't feel self-conscious about it. Could we have the next slide, please, Mark?
Charles, if you haven't put yourself on mute, could you put yourself on mute, please?
I can't remember where. Am I supposed to hand over to you, Chris, for the academic, or is this still me? Maybe I'm this one, and Chris is the more detailed one that comes next. Academically, we're following what we do when we're there physically. Our classes are very small, and that's a real advantage. The students all find that that enables them to interact in an engaging way. And the students have between 25 and 30 hours of contact time each week. The youngsters, the lower number of hours, and our older students, the seniors, getting 30 hours. And one of the things that we learned during last term is that it's actually quite important to support their homework processes online in the same way as we support their homework processes when we're on campus. And that the on-campus model of being in classrooms with the students while they're doing their homework, rather than just sending them off to do that completely independently, turned out to be just as important when we're online. And we start each day with a session which combines PSHE and homework, so they're with one of the staff doing some homework and getting help when they need it. We're monitoring progress all the time. That happens as a matter of routine in classes, and we're helping students understand how to get better day by day. And when we reach the end of the program, even those who are with us for the shortest period, for just 3 weeks, then we do give a report about that. Obviously, those who've been here for just 3 weeks, we can't report in quite the same detail as we can for somebody who's been with us for a full term. But nevertheless, we are looking to maintain that quality of feedback and quality of understanding, so that the students themselves know how they've done and how to continue making good progress, and how those who support them at home can also do that. Next slide, Mark. Oh, that definitely looks like one for Chris.
There you go. Oh, thank you. I'm unmuted. Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Stuart. So I thought I'd give you a few of the details about the 3 different programs that we run. So these are the junior college for 7 to 11-year-olds, the middle college for 11 to 14-year-olds, and the senior college for 14 to 17-year-olds. Now, our junior and middle students study in the classroom for 25 lessons per week and are set approximately 5 hours of prep, of homework a week in addition to their classwork. Also, both the junior and middle college study the same subjects. So those are English, maths, science, geography, history, and PSHE, and that's personal, social, and health education. But obviously, juniors and middles study these subjects at different levels, appropriate for their school year. And so the syllabus is different for each of these subjects. In fact, our students follow the same syllabuses taught by mainstream schools, but the teaching and delivery style of the classes has been designed to help speakers of English as a second language access the same topics as their counterparts in mainstream schools. Now, the senior college follow a slightly different set of subjects, but still with a mix of sciences, maths, and humanities. So these are English, maths, science, business studies, global perspectives, history, and PSHE. So again, they follow the same syllabuses as students taking their GCSEs in mainstream schools, but with those adaptations to help second language speakers access the content of the lessons. Now, our senior students study for 30 lessons every week with an additional 7.5 hours of prep, approximately. Now, our class sizes are small. To give you an idea of what it's currently like in term 4 as we speak, our present averages are 6 to 7 in English and subject classes. So there's lots of time, lots of room for individual attention for each of those students from the teacher. Looking at assessment now, that fourth row, students exit the course having had input relevant to their age across the specific subjects and in the English language at the relevant CEFR level. An assessment will be made through work produced in class and assessments made through reactions to specific milestone pieces of work. So we're assessing the work that students are doing during the class and for prep. So reporting on progress, at the end of the program, all students are presented with a final individual learning plan. This is their academic report, and that details their progress in English and in all of their academic subjects. And it will cover what they've learned during their course. It will cover their level of engagement with the classes, and teachers will comment on the progress the student has made. And as Stuart referred to before, we'll have varying degrees of detail in each of these reports, depending on the length of time that the student has been with us. Now, actually very little of our academic delivery has changed from what we deliver in real face-to-face classes. So in term 4, we allow students to enter at more points within the term for 3-week, 5-week, and 10-week durations. So the way we deliver that and manage that flexibility is through a progressive approach to teaching. So in this, we need to balance learning topics so they build on each other and skills are developed through the program. But modules are still accessible to students arriving in class at those different points. So this is similar to how we prepare courses usually for our term 4 students. Very little has changed. It's based on Vygotskian principles of the zone of proximal development, pedagogically assessed learning structures, and Bloom's taxonomy, which is the way we stage these different learning skills as we go through. So we can develop appropriate learning objectives that stretch and challenge students on longer courses within the term, but also allow students on shorter courses to drop in and access that material successfully. Mark, next slide, please. This is a typical day at Bishopstrow online. So it starts at 6 a.m. That's UK time. So this is much more accessible, like Stuart was saying, much more accessible time for most of our students across the world. So it helps a lot with the time differences between us and the countries our students come from, which is a huge benefit for the students, not for the teachers, but for the students definitely. And you can see from the side, the lessons have been scheduled at 50 minutes long, and we've done this by making the lessons more efficient. So we want to limit screen time, but retain the focus on the learning objective. So this allows us to add an additional slot at the start of the day without adding to the amount of screen time we expect from the student. Now, this additional slot is that first slot you see at the top of each student's day. This is the PSHE Wellbeing and Academic Development Hour, and it's really useful because students will meet with a teacher in their first 1 hour slot. This is additional to the subjects that are currently being taught. This is an add-on. So here the teacher will be available to help with a number of different independent elements of the course. So they can help with understanding the PSHE and assembly videos. So these PSHE and assembly videos are filmed assemblies, and they're run by a member of the academic management team, such as myself or Stuart, and it incorporates PSHE topics with student diaries covering topics such as bullying, internet safety, human rights, things like that. Also in this PSHE Wellbeing and Academic Development Hour, we focus on the fitness and wellbeing videos. So these are filmed sports and wellbeing sessions. They help students remain fit and healthy as they're working from home. And we understand that this kind of teaching means a lot of sitting down, a lot of screen time. So we put these measures in place to try and help with that. Also in this hour, the teacher will answer any questions the student have regarding the work set by teachers the previous day or their prep work. So this hour gives an additional layer of support to students who, through the nature of online working, require a little bit more support to complete any work to be done independently and to stay well and to stay healthy. So this adds that extra layer of support without eating into the content of the subjects we're providing. All right, I think that's enough for me, so I'll pass you back to Stuart for more details on our well-being and fitness provision.
Thank you, Chris. As I was mentioning earlier, we recognise the importance of this, and in fact, when we started the online process, it was clear to us how critical it was to make sure that we weren't ignoring their physical and psychological health. And so from the outset, the academic provision has been supplemented by well-being and fitness approaches. And we have prepared these ourselves. So rather than just directing our students to generic pre-prepared material that comes from elsewhere, we have prepared our own, recognizing that second language speakers need a particular approach. And so we brought the Bishopstrow expertise to that in the same way as we do to the rest of what we offer. And we've had some great examples. Students have generated their own material on the back of some of the prompts they've been given. And we've seen some expert football dribbling, and we've seen some high athletic achievements. So they are buying into this process, and we've enjoyed sharing that with them too. We meet with them each week to talk through things like this. We ask them how they're getting on individually in a weekly tutorial. We check on their academic progress. We check that they are making sense of the assemblies. We check that they're enjoying the well-being program, and we're making sure that they are generally okay. And all of that is part of our genuine holistic approach to education, and that's no less true when we're online than it is when we're on campus. Mark, the next slide, please. This weekly meeting also involves this pastoral care, making sure that they are well and healthy, and making sure that if there are issues where perhaps they seem to have been missing a class, making sure that they're okay, finding out what's happened there. It allows for two-way communication. That's always really important. We check that students are happy in their classes, being able to make sense of the online platform, being able to get into their lessons okay, and that they're happy in that process. The personal, social, health, and economic responsibility that we have for their education is also taking place in a comprehensive way. Chris mentioned the daily assembly videos that the students watch during the initial hour of each day. And once again, as Chris was saying, these are things that we produce ourselves. They are produced in a way that is helpful and informative for second language learners, and again is providing the same type of structure and the same type of clarity as they get in their academic lessons. And we continue to recognize and reward the good work that they do. The Bishopstrow stars are awarded each week, and the students with the highest number of stars each week are celebrated in the Friday assembly. Chris does a fantastic Friday celebration assembly when we're on campus, and he's managed to maintain that enthusiasm and verve when he does the presentations online. Every Friday, that celebration, which is making the awards to the students of the week, the junior, middle, and senior students of the week, and the overall house of the week. They still have a house identity even when they're online. So it is that whole person that we're trying to educate. It's recognizing that we're not just responsible for them performing academically and developing their language. Actually, we're trying to engage every aspect of their lives and their learning. Next slide, please, Mark. and it seems to have worked. We didn't have a great deal of experience of online teaching generally when we started at the end of March, but the feedback from students has been really positive. They really loved it. In term 3, last term, the vast majority of students were students who'd expected to be with us physically on campus. And we were worried that they might feel a little bit disappointed. Well, I suppose they were a bit disappointed not to be at Bishopstrow, but they were really enthusiastic about what they were getting online. And there are just a few examples there of the sort of things that they said about the online experience. And that's continued this term. We have some very happy, smiley faces enjoying their classes. And the next one, Mark. This one might perhaps be more for Tessa. Tessa, do you want to go through this one?
Yeah, I will. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to cover the admissions part of obviously Bishopstrow, which hasn't changed very much. It just we've just condensed it slightly. So as Mark said, we started term on the 22nd of June, and it continues through to the 28th of August. And students are able to enroll for a minimum of 3 weeks. So the process is very simple. We will require a registration form, applicant's passport, the latest school report, and then we will arrange a Skype interview so that we can ensure that they go into the correct English classes. And then after the Skype, we will make an offer. And on acceptance and payment, we will arrange an induction prior to the start of their online experience. We tend to do a Monday start for each new group, so that they can start at the beginning of the week and continue through to online for the rest of the time that they're with us, whether that's 3 weeks or 5 weeks or 10 weeks. So I think it's a fantastic preparation just to familiarise themselves with the UK educational system, but more importantly, we cover how to prepare for going to boarding school in the September.
Yes, I think I would echo that, Tessa, if I may, that at this stage of the students are coming to Bishopstrow often for a relatively short period of time, preparing for the autumn term at their next school. And from what we've seen of Bishopstrow Online, the provision that we make online, I think, is going to be just as successful in helping students in that preparation process as when we're on campus. It really has gone very well, so we're really very confident about that. Thanks, Tessa.
I would also just add to what Tessa said, everybody, that we have been offering some trial sessions for prospective students before they've committed. Obviously, this is a new experience for many students, and in some cases we've been able to have them enroll on for a class or two before committing to join us formally. So that option is available. I think we're now into the Q&A section, so I will stop the screen share, and I think we will use the chat function for any questions. So please, if you have any questions at all for Chris, Tessa, Stuart, as I said, we'll use the chat function, and then we'll read out the question, and appropriate person from our side will respond. Any questions from anybody?
Can I just add something? I mean, obviously, you know, Bishopstrow is very unique in the sense that we are totally independent. So we are able to prepare, even for a short period of time, the students to go on to a huge variety of schools. So we really do work and prepare children specifically for independent schools around the UK, and it obviously is a very, you know, big advantage to other students going to that school, because if they've done the Bishopstrow online program or actually in person, it means that we are able to prepare them specifically for each individual school.
Thank you, Tessa. Question from Gamzee. Trial sessions. How many trial sessions, and is there any fee for the trial sessions? Tessa or Chris, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I'm very happy to. I mean, what we do is we obviously look at each individual student to make sure that we are able to put them into a specific class, and they can do 1 or 2 trial sessions in a day to see how that, you know, how they feel within that particular class. And obviously every student is in the correct English class level so that they can work within their classmates.
Thank you. Next question. How many Bishopstrow staff are involved? Is it a separate section to the school? Well, when we went into lockdown, in essence, like most schools, we needed to obviously continue teaching, but teaching online. So all of our teachers, right the way through to Chris and Stuart, are delivering Bishopstrow online, and they're supported by 1 or 2 members of the boarding staff who are supporting students on the pastoral wellbeing side. So it's the entire Bishopstrow sort of teaching community. It hasn't changed from our normal teaching staff that we would use if the students were with us on campus, and that will continue to be the case next term. So next term we envisage or are planning to have the teachers back in the classroom with the students, but also providing access to those classes through Bishopstrow Online. So students working remotely will join the classes, join the teachers, join their fellow classmates in the classroom, but from their sort of virtual location. So it's exactly the same sort of teaching contingent. Any more questions from anybody?
I wonder if I might add a bit to each of those 2 answers, Mark, if that's okay.
Yeah.
On the first one, the experience of the trial lessons has been quite very encouraging, because the vast majority of the students who've come and given Bishopstrow Online a try have been very positive about it and have joined us. In particular, I know at the beginning of term, I think we had, only 3 Russian students registered, because for some reason Russian parents could not be convinced that online teaching was something that was anything that would be worthwhile. And then we had, I think one of the agents suggested, well, actually, could we just let them try? So we did let them try, and we've gone from 3, I think, to 15 at the last count. When they've actually tried it, they've realized actually this does work. They really enjoy it, and they're happy to be there. So it's been a very positive experience, those trial sessions. And with the question about which Bishopstrow staff are involved, I think that comes back to when we started the process and discussing with my colleagues about how this might work. They were very insistent that they've got to be involved and engaged in the same way. As I said, there are a lot of schools have taken the approach that the teacher contact time actually might be relatively light, and that it will be a sort of distributed work process that then gets fed back to the teachers. And the Bishopstrow staff were quite insistent that actually it needed to be them. It needed to be them in front of the children. It needed to be them that the children could communicate with and get help from, day by day, moment by moment throughout the learning experience in just the same way. So it is Bishopstrow just online.
Thank you. Next question is probably for Chris. Minimum 3 weeks on average, 5 to 6 weeks normal program. How do you cover the lessons? Is this fast track for short program students? So I think probably the question, Chris, is to what extent are we able to have students sort of rolling on and off in terms of the program overall and what they're covering during their time with us?
Unmute. Yeah. It's exactly the same as what we usually do in term 4. So we have students coming in for between 3, 5 and 10 weeks. And so the way we organize the teaching in the classroom is using the zone of proximal development and Bloom's taxonomy, where we're building on skills within a framework of content. And so a student is able to drop in for 3 weeks within one module or within several modules and understand the content at this particular skill level, whereas the students who are in week 8 or week 9 of their course at that particular point in time will be able to develop skills within that content at a much higher level. So the way that we design our course, exactly the same as what we've designed it, how we've designed it previously, where we had students dropping in for 5 or 10 weeks. It's the same kind of thing, but we've broken it down into shorter modules, but still the skill level develops as they go through the term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that modular approach, sorry, Mark, I think that modular approach is important because that means that they get a coherent experience. So if they're here for 3 weeks, it's a coherent experience within those 3 weeks, because each week is a self-contained learning block, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. And then overlapping that, we have the students who are here for longer who are able to access that at a higher skill level.
Next question, an interesting one. Are teachers happy to work in the holiday period and are they paid extra? Bishopstrow has always operated a 4-term academic year, and we're currently in term 4. The teachers are contracted to work 4 terms, 44 weeks a year. So their contracts haven't changed. They're not paid extra. Their hours have changed because, as Stuart and Chris alluded to, they're starting very early in the morning, 6 a.m. with their classes. But no, this is the model that we've had. We've always run our summer program through term 4 with the same teaching staff as the staff that are teaching for the remainder of the year. So no difference there. Another question from Alison. Will these online classes continue in January? What is the approximate cost for 3 or 4 weeks? I think at the moment we're looking a term ahead and we're planning to continue with Bishopstrow Online in probably a slightly different format, as I mentioned, through term 1, so through to the end of December. We're hoping, but of course we may be hoping speculatively, that students will be back on campus, all students will be back on campus in January. But of course we recognise that depends on the evolving situation globally with the pandemic, and I think we're therefore reserve any decision on what we do in what we call term 2, which starts in January, for later on in the autumn. But at the moment we're planning through to the end of December to offer online alongside the face-to-face provision. In terms of the cost, Tessa, do you have the fees to hand? Do you know?
I do. Can I just cover a question that's asked about the trial, whether these are charged? We
Yes.
do not charge for trial. We do, however, ask that they register and we have their school reports and passport to ensure that they are put into the right English class for their trial, because otherwise we won't have an indication of what their level is unless we, arrange that Skype and then go for the trial. So the junior college program, which is from 7 to 11, is £780 per week, and the middle program is £830 per week, and the senior college, the middle is from 11 to 14. The senior is from 14 to 17, and that's £890 per week.
Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions? No? Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully you found that useful. I think the contact details for the four of us were on the beginning of the presentation, which we'll share with you. I think you probably all know Tessa's details anyway. So if you have any questions at all about the programme that you would like to discuss following today's session, please do get in touch. As we mentioned up front, we do have availability for the rest of this term. So I think we're coming up to week 5, Chris, are we, of this term? Have I got that right? Week 5 next week? So there's 6 weeks to go. So we can potentially enroll students for up to 6 weeks through to the end of August, which sits quite nicely ahead of them returning to school in September. We've just had another question come in. Will you potentially continue with a full online school as well as normal school program next year? At the moment, our intention is, as I mentioned, to run online alongside classroom-based delivery for term 1 and to review that situation during term 1. But at the moment, we're not intending to run a full online school separately to the normal school program. So the programs will run at the same time with the same teachers. It's just the nature of how you're being taught, whether you're in the classroom or online, that will be different. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you for those of you that got up in the middle of the night, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. But thank you everybody and good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.